on Patriots Nation. It's your host, Matt LePan. Flying solo tonight. We're hoping to have Brian back next week. But now we're heading into the second half of the NFL season for the Patriots. They sit at 6-2 heading into their Week 10 matchup with the Denver Broncos, a game that most years would have people all jacked up, but this year it's kind of lackluster because, well, the Denver Broncos don't have an offense, and their defense allowed 51 points to the Philadelphia Eagles last week. But we're going to preview that anyways. We're going to look at that game. We're going to look ahead to the Mexico City game against the Oakland Raiders as well. The Patriots, a bit of a different schedule over the next 2 weeks. And we're also going to give out our mid-season awards here on the podcast. We want to make sure that you're getting involved, though. Make sure to follow us at Patriot Central on Twitter, like Patriot Central on Facebook. You can find me, Matt_LePan on Twitter, and Brian at bphillips_pp. Make sure you're interacting with us during games during the week. Let us know if you want to hear something on the podcast. We'll make sure to get your voice heard. But previewing this game this week, Patriots head to the 3-5 Denver Broncos, the Brock Osweiler-led Denver Broncos, and this isn't 2015, folks. Brock Osweiler made his first start last week, and Denver, quite frankly, sucked. The Broncos' defense has been there for years. Aqib Talib, Chris Harris, Von Miller, Derek Wolfe, but there's just something missing this year, and it seems like Vance Joseph, to steal a phrase here from our friend Sergio Dip, not having the time of his life. They allowed 51 points. They got absolutely blown out by the Philadelphia Eagles, who may be the best team in football right now. Them and the Patriots kind of neck and neck. And the Patriots go into Denver, a place that, quite frankly, has been a house of horrors since 2001. They're 3-7 against Denver. And, whenever you think of Mile High and you think of Sports Authority Field, you think of Shannon Sharp. You think of call the National Guard because we're killing the Patriots. You think of the AFC Championship game where, Tom Brady was throwing to Matt Slater and Matt Mulligan and almost willed the Patriots to a Super Bowl, but Denver coming out with just an absolute beatdown defensively. Von Miller going around Marcus Cannon, who unfortunately isn't playing this week. So I think this one, while it's probably going to be a Patriots win, may not be the easy win that Patriots fans want. This Denver Broncos team, if there was one game they were going to get up for, it's going to be this Patriots game. They always want to be Patriots killers. I just don't think they have it going into this week. Brock Osweiler, like I said before, he lost all that magic that he had when he beat the Patriots back in 2015. He was a Houston Texan, then a Cleveland Brown. Now he's back, and he's starting for them, but, it's kind of just because he's there. He's a warm body. Paxton Lynch still injured and still not ready regardless, I believe, from reports coming out of Denver. So this Denver team, really no offense. They have offensive line issues. They still have Emmanuel Sanders. They still have C.J. Anderson. They still have Demaryius Thomas, but they have nobody to get them the ball. So I think that when the Patriots look at this matchup, what they need to do is they need to get out there, and they need to get out to a fast start. It's tough to do that in Denver, but if you get yourself behind and you allow that crowd at Sports Authority Field at Mile High to get into it, that's a tough place to play. That crowd brings it no matter what until you silence them. And the Patriots did that last year when they went into Denver and delivered a pretty handy beatdown. I think that that's the approach you want to take again this year. You want to get the ball early and you want to attack them. And the way you can do that kind of gets into the news of the night, and that's the Patriots bring back Martellus Bennett. Bennett was cut by the Green Bay Packers, and the Patriots claimed him on waivers. So Bennett back in the fold. Is he healthy is a question. This is going to be a really interesting thing to look at. But when you look at the Broncos' weakness, they really don't have great safety play. So if you have Rob Gronkowski and Martellus Bennett playing, you attack those seam routes. And I think that's the way the Patriots get ahead. And then you can go underneath Dion Lewis, James White, Rex Burkhead. Chris Hogan likely not going to play. He was seen to sling. But when you attack with Gronkowski, with potentially Bennett, and then the attack we saw before the bye week when the Patriots really just got the ball out quick. They prevented Tom Brady from getting too many hits, get to Lewis, get to White. Burkhead really came on strong in that game. I think that's the way you attack this Denver team. It's quick hitters, it's attacking the linebackers and the safeties, because we all know that Aqib Talib and Chris Harris, they're still, in my mind, the best cornerback duo in the NFL. Some people are going to disagree with me on that because they haven't been their normal shutdown selves this year. And talent-wise, I guess they're still number one because, last week it didn't look like those guys were too interested in playing, and then you had the quotes after the game by Chris Harris. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Patriots attack. Tom Brady is going to likely be without Marcus Cannon on his right side. Nate Solder did come back to practice today, so you're looking at Adrian Waddle. That's another reason why you're hoping that Martellus Bennett's injury that got him released is a quote-unquote injury. You're hoping that he's back healthy so you can glue him to Adrian Waddle's hip and try to take Von Miller out of his game. Shane Ray, I'll let Shane Ray ruin my game plan. I'm not going to game plan for Shane Ray. I'm game planning for Von Miller and for Derek Wolfe because those two guys are game wreckers and they've proven it in the past. So if you get Bennett back, that adds another layer of dimension to the Patriots being able to protect Tom Brady. And, the story of the first half was Tom Brady and how much he got hit. The Patriots' offensive line wasn't good. We're not going to pretend it was. But the second half of the season, especially with Bennett back in the fold, you have a chance, especially with the schedule the Patriots have, if you protect Tom Brady, you can potentially run the table here. Really, the toughest teams remaining are going to be Oakland. It's going to be Buffalo, probably in Buffalo because that, again, House of Horrors type of thing and divisional opponent. And Denver's been, Buffalo's been pretty good. And then you're looking at that Pittsburgh game late in the year. But this one could be a tougher one if you allow Von Miller and Derek Wolfe to get after you. They don't have the guys they used to have. They don't have the dogs they used to have in, a guy like Malik Jackson who, you'd game plan against these two other guys and Jackson would ruin it. Or, even a DeMarcus Ware in the past has ruined Patriots game plans because you're so focused on Von Miller that he would take over. I don't see Shane Ray being able to be the guy that takes it over, and nobody else on that defensive line really scares me. So Patriots need a game plan this week to protect Tom Brady, and with Adrian Waddle likely being the starting right tackle, it's going to be something to keep an eye on. But when you get down to it, I just don't see the Patriots losing this game. I think that you're looking at a pretty handy win. I'm going to look in the the 27-10, 27-13 range. Just because I don't think Denver has it. I just don't see Brock Osweiler becoming the quarterback that he was for a 7-week span and being able to beat the Patriots. So, we'll call it 27-13. Expect the Patriots to win that one. And now we're going to get back to the news that I was telling you about. The Patriots claimed Martellus Bennett off of waivers this week after he was cut by the Green Bay Packers. He finished with just 24 receptions for 233 yards in 7 games for Green Bay. Patriots bring him back into the fold, and to make room on the roster for him, they released defensive lineman Geno Grissom. And now everybody in New England, Twitter has been freaking out ever since he got cut. Everybody's excited to get Marty Bennett back. And, I got to admit I'm in that same crowd. Martellus Bennett is a very talented player when he's engaged. And when he was in New England, he was engaged. And I know he's got a little bit of money now, but he may be losing that. He may be playing for another contract if you don't believe him and saying this is his last year playing. And if it is his last year playing, well, he's probably motivated to go out with 2 rings. So Martellus Bennett being back and what that means for the team. Well, one, the reports are that he was, Green Bay said it. They released him for a failure to disclose an injury. The reports are that injury is related to a shoulder. So is Bennett healthy is the big question. Are we going to see similar to what we saw a few years back when LeGarrette Blount went to Pittsburgh? That was for insubordination, but he came to the Patriots, came back that next week, and it was off to the races for LeGarrette Blount. Are we going to see that for Martellus Bennett? Is that shoulder not as bad as we think? And he's a guy we all know can play injured. Martellus Bennett played, I'd say, 80% of last season with some sort of injury, whether it was a shoulder, an ankle. That ankle was terrible all season. He was banged up most of the year, but what was the most impressive part about him, he didn't put up eye-popping numbers as a receiver. He played in all 16 games. He started 12, finished with 55 receptions for 701 yards, 7 touchdowns in the regular season, and he added 11 receptions for 98 yards in 3 postseason games. And what was most impressive about him, though, he didn't look like he did back in his heyday in Chicago. He wasn't catching a million touchdowns, but what he was doing was grinding. He was doing stuff that Bill Belichick loves to see out of players like this. He came in, he was a blocker for a good portion of the season. There was times where he was essentially like a third tackle on the field. He wasn't going out on routes, and I don't think the Patriots want to use him like that, but they already have the best offense in the AFC at this point. Now that they're clicking, I think they're the best offense in the AFC. And if you can bring him in and take some of the pressure off of Rob Gronkowski, Jacob Hollister, an undrafted rookie free agent, obviously isn't doing too much. And then you have Dwayne Allen, who has done literally nothing. Hasn't caught a ball yet, hasn't been a good blocker, and has really forced Rob Gronkowski to be a almost 100% of the plays player. And before the bye week, Gronk kind of alluded to, there were some plays I didn't have it. And that's a scary thought for Patriots fans because if Rob Gronkowski doesn't have it, and Rob Gronkowski is not at 100%, if you take him away and Julian Edelman away and now Chris Hogan away for a couple of games here, you're limiting what the Patriots have on offense. So now if you can have Bennett come back, be that guy who stays in, does some chip blocking. If he plays this week, helps out with a guy like Von Miller. But he can also go out and run some of those routes and get Rob Gronkowski off the field a little bit. Looking at Brian Phillips, he's done a great job this year, my co-host Brian, on tracking the personnel packages over Pat's Pulpit. 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. That's been the Patriots' go-to almost half the plays in the season. If you can have Rob Gronkowski be able to come out on some of those and Martellus Bennett come in, whether it be to block, whether it be to go out on routes, whether it be to just be a decoy, and get Gronkowski down to 70-75% of plays, I think you'll see a better Rob Gronkowski and a more effective Patriots offense, if you can even believe that. So I think this Bennett signing, really, it bolsters an offense that was already really firing on all cylinders despite the injuries. So I think it's great to see Marty Bennett back in the fold. Everybody remembers after the AFC Championship game, Martellus Bennett dancing with the cheerleaders. In one short year, he really ingrained himself into New England. He's not your typical Patriot. He loves to talk. He'll say the controversial things. He'll dance with the cheerleaders after the game, stuff like that. But you can tell that his effort and his ability is really what, kind of indoctrinated him into the Patriots culture. And Bill Belichick didn't want to talk about it before it was official, but now that he's here, you got to think Belichick's happy. A guy who walked away for some money, and I think it was mutual. Bennett wanted that ring. He came in, he got it, but I think he saw that, Aaron Rodgers goes down, so he's got his money, and really he's got no chance of winning. I think that both Bennett and Belichick are probably happy he's back because now you're going down a stretch run in the second half of the season where you have 2 really good tight ends who can make an impact. So I'm happy to see Bennett back. I know that Brian Phillips, my co-host, is happy to see him back. The only one who might not be happy is Brian Harrington, our producer. The Bills needed a tight end bad, and Brian, as you all know here, Brian Harrington, a big Bills fan, and his team's having a great year, but they needed a tight end, and they passed on him. So that's where the health questions come. Did they know something? Did the Patriots know something that everybody else doesn't? Maybe he's not as injured as he thought, or were these other teams kind of scared at the fact that he might do the same to them. He might not play if he's not engaged. So it's something to keep an eye on, but I think that likely Bennett's not going to play this week, but if he does play, it can really change the complexion of the game. And that wasn't the only move the Patriots made this week. The other move, they signed defensive lineman Ricky Jean-Francois to the active roster and put Dante Hightower on injured reserve, all but ending Hightower's season. There are some people out there saying, the 8 weeks would put us in week 17. Stop with that. Dante Hightower had a pec injury. He had the surgery. Yes, he's a fast healer. Yes, he's a tough guy. Yes, the Patriots still have 2 guys they can bring back off of IR, but I don't see it happening. I don't see Dante Hightower being that guy, and, they've made allusions to the fact that his season's over. So expect him to be gone. That's a huge blow to the defense. Kyle Van Noy is probably going to have to move back to the middle. You're going to see more Landon Roberts. You're going to see more David Harris. and Shea McClellan going to move back to IR. So that's a big blow as well. Everybody thought, oh, if Hightower's out, well, McClellan's coming back anyways. McClellan started to practice and was in the process of being activated off of IR, but then had concussion issues, went back on IR. His season's done. So no Hightower, no McClellan. You bring in Ricky Francois, raises questions about the health of Malcolm Brown. So this Patriots team, yes, they're coming out of the bye, and yes, they're healthy-ish, but you look at that defense and really, especially with a guy like Malcolm Brown who's been playing his best football out, you question where this defense can go. It can go one way or the other. Either they're going to continue to make the strides that they've been making, or they can take a step back here with no real presence up the middle. You know, Alan Branch has been playing phenomenal, but I think part of that has been that Brown's playing the best football of his career, so you have Brown and Branch, and you can't double team both. So I think that that's something to keep an eye on. Can Branch stay in that really good form that he's worked himself into? And can Kyle Van Noy get himself back to being in the middle? You know, the Patriots kind of moved him around when Hightower came back. He was still in the middle, but they gave the green dot back to Dante, and now it's going to go back on Van Noy. Let's see what he can do in the middle. I think the Jean Francois signing is good depth. You know, he can play all over the place. When you want to play in an underfront, you want to bump him out over the tackle, he's done it. He's played in 3-4 systems. When you want to move him inside, he's played all the way down to a nose. He's played all the way out to a 3 technique. I think he adds good depth, and if Brown's out, you're not completely relying on a guy like Alan Branch, and you're not throwing too much onto the plate of rookie Adam Butler. And, you know, so it's not a great signing. It's a good signing. I think he'll provide some quality depth, but keep an eye on the middle of that defense, you know, especially going forward when you look at some of these teams that like to run the ball, especially when you're looking at teams like Buffalo. Buffalo has really done a great job this year running the ball, so those are going to be games to watch if Brown works his way back, if Jean Francois works his way in, and where Van Noy's at, where David Harris is at, and all that stuff. So, as we head into the second half of the season, you know, we want to take a little bit of a look back. We want to give our mid-season awards here on Patriots Central Radio, and I know no Brian Phillips, so it's just going to be my awards. And we'll start with probably the most obvious award, the MVP of the first half of the season, and I mean, it's hard to say anyone but Tom Brady. Brady's leading the NFL in passing. He has the second fewest interceptions. He has 16 touchdowns. He's just absolutely shredding defenses. Tom Brady looks like a league MVP. Forget just Patriots MVP. Tom Brady probably in the top 2 now for league MVP. Through half the season, he has 309 completions for 2,541 yards, 16 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions, 8.2 yards per attempt. And for a dink and dunk guy, that's pretty impressive. And, you know, he and Carson Wentz are really the only people even in the running right now for MVP. And Wentz has been good, but if I'm looking at it, I'm taking Brady. Obviously, I have the bias, but looking at the numbers, you know, Brady's just, he's leading the NFL in passing. He's at the top in completion percentage. His touchdown-interception ratio is off the charts. I believe it's second in the NFL. So, obviously, he's going to be your team MVP. You know, there wasn't any surprise in that one. If you want to look at now the most improved and an offensive MVP outside of Tom Brady, that guy's the same person for me, and that's Chris Hogan. Hogan's numbers aren't as good this year, but Chris Hogan has 5 touchdowns, already a career high. He has 33 receptions for 438 yards, 13.3 yards per reception. And Chris Hogan has been Tom Brady's go-to. Yes, there are other guys with more receptions. You know, Brandon Cooks has been really good, but I think that if Chris Hogan wasn't on this team, wasn't playing as well as he's playing right now, you're not anywhere near where you're at. I think Chris Hogan's the most improved and a guy that you can look at as most valuable outside of Tom Brady in this first half. And it's terrible that he's dinged up here, but he's played tough. He's played through injuries. And that's a guy who is really earning everything he has. He's earning the love from the Patriots fans. And getting him back is going to be a big boost. Hopefully he's not gone for too long in the second half, but that's a guy who I want to make sure, you know, I give the recognition of most improved and, you know, MVP outside of Tom Brady offensively. When you go to the defensive side of the ball, it's kind of a toss-up here. Devin McCourty's played pretty well, but overall the defensive backfield has been shaky. So you can't, in my mind, really give it to him. And up front, the linebackers have been okay. The defensive line's been okay. I think there's really been one guy who stood out to me as really the guy who's been the most consistent on the season. That's Trey Flowers. You haven't heard his name a ton. 3.5 sacks, 37 total tackles. He hasn't been eye-popping, but when you look at a guy who has been consistently good throughout the season, it's been Trey Flowers. Flowers has played everywhere the Patriots have asked him to play him. He's done everything they've asked him to do. When you look at the other side of the field, Dietrich Wise, Cassius Marsh, guys like that on the other side, giving up the edge, you never see that happen on Trey Flowers' side. He's a guy who has become assignment sound. He's become a consistent player in the NFL, and he still provides pass rush, even though teams know they don't have to worry about the other side. They don't have to worry about Marsh. They don't have to worry about Wise. They don't have to worry about a guy like Lawrence Guy. They don't have to worry about Dante Hightower because he hasn't been there. Adam Butler, he's been up and down. So with huge pressure on him to perform, Trey Flowers, to me, has been your defensive MVP through the first half of the season. And obviously your most improved when you look at it. But, some unnoticed guys who have really done well, one of the guys being Johnson Batamosi. Stephon Gilmore goes down, and Batamosi is a guy who stepped in and he really acquitted himself really well and made it look much better for Bill Belichick, who had a tough go of things in some of these additions. I think that coming in, starting, playing well, adding some toughness has really done a great thing for the Patriots defense. And, it's been really good for Bill Belichick to have that addition that worked out. And it's been good for Malcolm Butler. I think having a guy across from him that he kind of communicated with on a better level has been good for him. I think that it got Butler his swag back. And Butler's been pretty good. Butler hasn't been tremendous, but he's been pretty good since Batamosi has come on. Now that leads the question of what's going to happen when Stephon Gilmore comes back this week. We'll have to see. Luckily, Denver doesn't really have too much of a quarterback problem, or doesn't have too much of a quarterback, so it's not going to pose that much of a problem to the Patriots. Probably a good week to come back, but probably your best addition has been Johnson Batamosi, because there's been some tough ones, unfortunately. Guys like Cassius Marsh, Lawrence Guy, they just haven't worked out. And then, so looking at the rookie of the year so far for the Patriots through the first half, really your only option is Dietrich Wise Jr. Wise with 3 sacks, 12 total tackles. He hasn't been this offense wrecker like some want him to be. And, there's been a lot of pressure put onto him, being essentially a starter and every down player. But, when you look at the other rookies on the team, who's really done anything? Adam Butler's been fine, but really there haven't been any other rookies that have done anything. When you look on the offense side of the ball, there's none. There's no rookies that have done anything. There's really no rookies that play offensively. So you're really looking at a two-man race, and I'd take Wise over Butler. To this point, Butler's flashed more, but Wise has been a little more consistent. So just to recap, your MVP halfway through the season, Tom Brady, no surprise. Most improved and offensive MVP outside of Brady, to me, is Chris Hogan. Defensive player of the year so far, Trey Flowers. Defensive rookie and team rookie of the year, Dietrich Wise. If you want to look at a guy, this is where I nerd out a little bit, as your lineman of the year. The line play has been rough through the beginning of the season. One guy I want to make sure gets his just due is Shaq Mason. Mason's really been the only consistent performer for the Patriots. And I know PFF doesn't have him the highest graded member of the Patriots offensive line, but just in my watching and everything, he's a guy who hasn't allowed a lot of pressure. He's a guy who has been tremendous in the run game, and especially now that Dion Lewis is here and running the ball well, they're going behind Mason. So I think Mason has been your most consistent. You look at Andrews and Tooney, they've struggled at times, and obviously your tackles have really struggled. I think that Mason's been your only consistent performer, And so I want to make sure he gets the lineman of the year. And when you look on the other side of the ball, defensive lineman of the year, we already talked about him. And to me, it's been Malcolm Brown. Malcolm Brown has elevated his game this year, and it's been a really nice thing to see. For a guy who's really struggled to find a place in his career, he's played much better. Doesn't have the numbers, but when you watch him on the field, he's kind of been the reason that the Patriots have been able to slowly play Alan Branch back into shape, and he's the reason that their defense up front has become a little more stout in the past few weeks. He's really come on. He's been playing his best football in the past 3 to 4 weeks before he got injured. The beginning of the year was tough for him. I'm not saying he's been perfect this year, but his past 4 weeks have been the best 4 weeks of football he's played. And the rest of the defensive line, I'm trying to stay away from your defensive MVP and Trey Flowers. I'm looking at that interior line, and Brown deserves his just due there. So before we wrap up here, we want to get into something that's a little different that the Patriots are doing this week. And that being that the Patriots are flying out to Denver. They're playing their game in Denver, and they're not going to leave Colorado. Colorado Springs is going to be their home for the next week before they play a game in Mexico City. Now, Mexico City, a game that's going to be played at elevation when you play the Oakland Raiders. The Patriots are going to go to the Air Force Academy for the week and practice in Denver. They're going to make it a quick, essentially a day and a half trip into Mexico City, but they're going to stay in Colorado to practice at altitude after they play at altitude. And for those who remember, this is very reminiscent of the 2014 season when the Patriots went to Green Bay and then flew directly out to California before playing San Diego at the time, now the LA Chargers. But they played in San Diego that year, and when you look back at some of the quotes that came off of that, Devin McCourty really said it best. "This week was when we became a team," is a quote that always stood out to me. When the guys are away from every distraction, they're away from their families, they're away from the Boston media, essentially. They're staying in Denver this time. This is when you can really get team bonding, when these guys are together essentially 24/7. And this is kind of when I think you can see that turn. Is this going to be a Super Bowl contender, or is this just going to be another good Patriots team? At this point, we're not sure. They're a Super Bowl contender to get there because the rest of the AFC has come back to earth a little bit. Especially Kansas City has come back to earth. Pittsburgh's been up and down. I think they're playing their best football right now, so they're a team to watch out for. But if you see the Patriots go and knock off Denver in Denver, and then stay out there for a week, do some team bonding, go to Mexico City, and get a win, I think that this is when you can see this Patriots team become a true Super Bowl contender to win. So that's something to keep an eye on this week. And I think watching what happens and listening to some of the quotes that come out of their practice when they're in Colorado at the Air Force Academy is going to be something that's big. So, I would keep an eye on that, and I think it's a great thing the Patriots are doing. I think it's great they're practicing at the Air Force Academy. Bill Belichick, the old Navy guy, practicing at the Air Force Academy. So, something else to keep an eye on as we go through. And, just to recap, I have the Patriots winning this week in Denver by a 27-13 score, so that'll move them to 7-2, and that will put them essentially, depending on what happens at Pittsburgh, they'll stay at the very least tied atop the AFC. In their bye week, the Patriots came out big winners. Buffalo losing to the Jets, Kansas City losing to Dallas, Miami losing. The only win for somebody not named New England was Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's in the same boat the Patriots are in. They won because they were on the bye. So I think as we head into the second half of the Patriots season, there's a lot of reason for optimism. And, I think the Patriots will move to 7-2, and I think that they move into arguably their toughest week of the season. When you go into a week that you're not going to be at home at all, you're staying on the road, you're playing in a very foreign spot in terms of Mexico City. A lot of these guys have never been there or played there. They won't be there long, but the week after this Denver game, if they can get this win, it's going to be the most important week of the season. And we'll be right here to catch you up on everything that's happening. Make sure to follow us on Twitter again, at Patriot Central, at Matt_LePan, at BPhillips_PP. You can follow us on Facebook. We'll be live next week. We're getting the live show back. We'll be live on Facebook. Follow Patriot Central. Stay with us all week for news and notes and updates, and we'll catch you next week on Patriot Central Radio. Back after the bye week, it's Patriot Central Radio here on Pro Football Central. What's going on, Patriots Nation? It's your host, Matt LePan. Flying solo tonight. We're hoping to have Brian back next week. But now we're heading into the second half of the NFL season for the Patriots. They sit at 6-2 heading into their Week 10 matchup with the Denver Broncos, a game that most years would have people all jacked up, but this year it's kind of lackluster because, well, the